I've never been the type to chase peace and quiet. It just kind of found me after a chaotic couple of decades in the city. That's how I ended up here, standing barefoot on the worn boards of my new lakeside pier, watching the sunrise spill gold over Silver Bay. My name's Mitchell Grant. I'm 44 years old, divorced, self-employed in tech infrastructure, and for the first time in years, I can breathe without the weight of traffic, tension, or HOA regulations pressing down on me. A few months back, I bought a small off-the-grid parcel just outside the clustered rows of Silver Bay waters, a picture-perfect suburb with matching mailboxes, lawn height mandates, and a homeowners association with more power than sense. The land I bought, fully independent, not part of their jurisdiction. The title was clean, the boundaries clear. It was mine. No strings, no covenants, no monthly dues funding someone's ego trip. The property had been in limbo for a while after the previous owner moved out of state. It was a tucked-away patch with overgrown edges and lakefront access that had been all but forgotten. When I found it, I saw potential. I didn't want luxury. I wanted solitude. So, I built a modest, stilted cabin. Nothing fancy, but solid steel-reinforced footings, a wraparound deck, and a dock that reached into the stillest part of the water. It wasn't about appearances. It was about freedom. Weekends became sacred. I'd pack up the truck, throw in my fishing gear, maybe grab my 12-year-old son, Ethan, for a father-son getaway. Out here, the world didn't chase us. No phone calls, no performance reviews, just wind through the pines and the occasional slap of a fishtail breaking the surface. The first week was bliss. I fixed up the trail down to the dock, added solar panels to power the essentials, and even set up a little fire pit facing the lake. I grilled, I read, I slept under stars. Ethan helped me name the cabin the Perch because that's where we always caught the fattest ones. By the 6th day, we had a rhythm. Up with the sun, out on the water by 8, grill smoking by lunch. Life had finally quieted down. Then on the 7th day, flashing lights cut through the pines just as I was seasoning a base fillet. 3 police cruisers pulled up the gravel path like they were responding to a hostage situation. 2 officers stepped out, hands on holsters, asking me politely, but firmly, what I was doing on this property. I blinked, spat out my beer, and pointed to the cabin behind me. "This is my place," I said, fishing my wallet out of my back pocket. "Just bought it last month. Got the deed right inside." They explained someone had called in a report, said I was illegally occupying land that belonged to the Silver Bay Waters HOA. I almost laughed. I invited them in, laid out the paperwork on my kitchen table, plat maps, purchase contracts, county zoning certs. They took photos, made calls, confirmed everything was legal. One officer actually apologized on the way out. "Probably just a mix-up," he said. I shrugged it off. Mistakes happen. At the time, I didn't realize that was just the opening shot. A few days later, it happened again. Different officers, same tone. Another report of unauthorized occupancy. Now, I wasn't laughing. I pulled out the same paperwork as before, explained again that I legally owned the land and had no connection to the nearby HOA. The cops were polite, maybe even a little embarrassed. One of them looked over my shoulder at the lake and muttered, "This is a hell of a view to be fighting over." By the 3rd police visit, I was starting to feel like a suspect in my own home. And every time, the source of the report was the same, an HOA officer named Clark Benson. According to dispatch notes, Clark insisted I was squatting on community waterfront property and erecting unauthorized structures. One day, I was just teaching Ethan to fillet a fish when a deputy walked up through the trees. No lights, just that look of, "Yeah, sorry, man. It's him again." 5 calls in 1 month. I decided to look this guy up. Clark Benson, HOA safety officer for Silver Bay Waters. No badge, no real legal authority. Just a walkie-talkie, a fluorescent vest, and a clipboard loaded with petty grievances. His HOA position was unofficially described by locals as head of unwanted drama. I started noticing his presence too. A white Subaru Outback with the HOA logo crudely magnetized to the door began showing up near my access road. One morning, I caught him crouched behind a bush across the water with binoculars. The dude was watching me like I was building a meth lab instead of gutting trout. I confronted the next group of officers calmly but firmly. "Gentlemen, you've seen my documents. Can you please explain why this same guy keeps calling you about something that's already been verified as false?" One of them glanced around before muttering, "Off the record? He's got a reputation. Files complaints until people move. Usually works. No one's pushed back like you." And just like that, it clicked. This wasn't about rules. It was a game to Clark. Push, pressure, provoke until people gave up. He probably thought I'd fold like the last guy. Big mistake. After the 5th police visit, something inside me shifted. This wasn't just nuisance behavior. It was coordinated, relentless, and clearly strategic. Clark wasn't just obsessed. He was calculating. So I did what any pissed-off man with a few free afternoons and a subscription to public records would do. I started digging. I drove down to the county clerk's office, requested transaction histories on parcels adjacent to Silver Bay waters. The files told a story. My plot had changed hands 3 times in 20 years. Most recently, it belonged to a man named Henry Latham, a retired fire inspector who'd lived there off-grid for nearly a decade. I tracked him down in Arizona. I wrote an email. To my surprise, he called me the next morning. "That land's still quiet?" he asked. I told him what was going on. He sighed. "That little son of a..." "Yeah, same thing happened to me." He explained how Clark had offered to buy the land for the HOA for a laughable sum. When Henry refused, the pressure started. Reports of violations, harassment, even so-called volunteers showing up to clear brush. "I called it paper-cut warfare," Henry said. "They bleed you out one form at a time." It wasn't just me. I was part of a pattern. Clark's pattern. He wasn't just mad I owned the land. He was mad I was using it, occupying what he saw as territory he almost had. This wasn't personal. No, scratch that. Now it was. Henry ended the call with a warning. "Don't let that bastard play you, Mitch." I gave up. But if I had your spine, I'd have buried him in paperwork instead. So I decided to do exactly that. But not before one final move. I confronted him face to face. It was late afternoon. I was grilling trout when I heard that telltale crunch of gravel. I didn't turn. I knew who it was. "Beautiful day, huh?" Clark's voice had that smug, nasal tone. Shame it's being spun in violation of community shoreline code. I turned. There he stood. Khaki shorts, blue HOA polo, clipboard, and new detail a sidearm. It was theatrical. "Afternoon, Clark," I said. "Figured you'd show up eventually. Thought you might prefer a conversation over a courtroom." "I prefer resolution," he said. "But I also prefer order. You've brought neither. This land is not in your jurisdiction. You know that. You've seen the maps. You've heard the police confirm it. Yet you keep sending complaints." He smiled tight-lipped. "I call when I see violations." "There are no violations," I snapped. "This is harassment. You did the same to Henry. Tried to wear him down until he sold." His jaw twitched. A crack in his plastic mask. "I'm going to give you one last chance," I said, stepping closer. "Stop. Walk away. Because if you don't, I will make this public." He stepped in too. "You think you're some kind of crusader? This is about respect, about order. People like you think you're untouchable. Well, guess what, ill?" He moved his hand. Too fast to be casual. He unclipped the holster and rested his hand on the gun. I froze. "You threatening me now?" I said. "Just making sure things don't escalate," he replied, hand still on the grip. He wanted a reaction, but I didn't give it. I stepped back and walked away. What he didn't know was that a motion-activated trail cam had caught the whole thing. That night, I called my lawyer, Lena Mercado. Time to sue. We filed a 42-page complaint the next day, citing harassment, threat with a deadly weapon, property interference, and more. We demanded $750,000 in damages and a restraining order. I also filed a complaint with the sheriff's office. Within 48 hours, we found Clark had no valid carry permit. He was now under investigation. We submitted ethics complaints to the HOA and obtained leaked emails proving they knew about his behavior. The media got wind. The story exploded. Clark doubled down, but then came the dumbest move yet: slashed tires. His prints were found. Lena filed for an emergency hearing. The judge saw the footage, heard my story, and watched the sheriff's department present ballistic records. Clark was found guilty on multiple charges, sentenced to 3 years in state prison. The HOA dissolved his position and restructured. I received a gift basket and apology letter from the new board president. Clark, last I heard, tried to start a cell block HOA and got solitary. I made a sign: "Out here, we grill. We don't call the cops. Especially not 5 times in 1 month, Clark." Now I host BBQs for both sides of the lake. Peace is a beautiful thing, but sometimes you have to fight for it. And when you do, it changes everything.